My name is Arpan Banerjee. I'm a doctoral fellow at the Department of East Asian Studies, University of Delhi, and academic counselor here at IGNU. And I've been teaching you the paper Social Policies and Administration. The code of this paper is BPAE 144. So I welcome you all to today's learning session, and let us begin today's class. So far in this paper, that is Social Policies and Administration, we have discussed the first block, and the first block it was pertaining to social policy and administration and introduction. And as part of that, we have done the first unit, which was social policy, concepts, characteristics, objectives, scope, functions, principles, and models. After that, we had done the second unit, which was called Social Policy and Administration. Moving on, in this paper, we have also done the second block, which was Social Policies and Sustainable Development Goals in Social Sector. Now, this second block, it consisted of 5 units, which were relating to the Sustainable Development Goals. So, it had the third unit, which was poverty alleviation. The fourth unit of this block was relating to food security. The fifth unit was relating to education. And the sixth and seventh unit were relating to health and employment, respectively. Moving on, we had also begun the third block, which was pertaining to roles of various institutions. So in the third block, we have already discussed in the previous class the role of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Also, as part of the 9th unit, we have discussed the National Commission for Scheduled Castes and the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. Finally, we had the 10th unit, which was role of various institutes, National Institute of Social Defense. That was the 10th unit. And in the third block, we also have the role of Central Social Welfare Board, which we are going to do that today, which is the 11th unit, and role of civil society case studies, which is the 12th unit. So in today's class, we are going to discuss 2 units. That is Unit 10, Role of Various Institutes, National Institute of Social Defense, and Unit 11, Role of Central Social Welfare Board. So let us begin the 10th unit, Role of Various Institutes, National Institute of Social Defense. So when it comes to social defense, it means a sound social policy that confronts injustice being faced by the vulnerable population. It aims to uphold social justice irrespective of the population. Social justice is about fairly distributing the resources to the target audience so that they feel safe and secure. From the perspective of social defense, policy and development process must be advanced to protect human rights of the concerned stakeholders. Secondly, the process strives to advance human dignity, irrespective of their realities, vis-a-vis gender, age, income levels, victims of various forms of crime, etc. Scholars have been vocal about modern governments that it is their fundamental duty to set right the incompatibilities that arise out of discriminations, prejudices, and fragmentation of society. Social defense is protecting the society from crime through a systematic organization and coherent action of both the state and civil society actors. When it comes to protecting the society from crime, it focuses on fostering public sensitivity that are concerned with the marginalized and vulnerable sections of society, vis-a-vis elderly, victims of substance abuse, beggary, transgender persons, etc. So now let us discuss the evolution of the National Institute of Social Defense. So the National Institute of Social Defense was initially associated under the Ministry of Home Affairs in 1961. Originally, it was called as the Central Bureau of Correctional Services. In 1964, the Central Bureau came under the Department of Social Security. In 1975, the Central Bureau functioned as a subordinate office under the Ministry of Welfare, which is now the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Since 2002, it became an autonomous body registered under the Societies Registration Act 21 of 1860. When it comes to the field of social defense, the National Institution for Social Defense is the nodal institute that specializes in human resource development training and research vis-a-vis substance abuse prevention, geriatric care, beggary prevention, transgender persons, etc. With the objective to strengthen human resources in this field of social defense, the Institute intends to sensitize, orient, and build capacities at the state, regional, national, and international levels. So the National Institute for Social Defense, it intends to achieve this objective with the collaboration of various organizations. One of the primary objectives of the National Institute for Social Defense is to evolve psychosocial health policies in social defense domain vis-a-vis preventive, rehabilitative, and curative. Secondly, to identify the problems relating to social defense. Thirdly, to evolve instruments for achieving the objectives of social defense policies. Fourthly, to develop and promote voluntary effort in the social defense domain. Now let us discuss organization and management. So the National Institute for Social Defense has a multi-level support structure for the efficient functioning of the institute goals. The director is the administrative head of National Institute for Social Defense, and the director is supported by 4 deputy directors to head the respective divisions. Additionally, there are 2 councils, namely General Council and Executive Council. While the role of the General Council is to frame the broad policy parameters, the role of the Executive Council is to monitor and direct NISD's activities and programs. So both the General Council and the Executive Council, they are to be reconstituted for a period of 2 years by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Now let us discuss the General Council. The General Council members, they constitute the apex governing body of National Institute of Social Defense, along with the Secretary, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment as its ex officio president. So totally there are 12 members, 8 official members and 4 non-official members. While the official members include the representatives from relevant ministries and departments, non-official members include the expertise in the area of social defense. Now let us discuss the Executive Council. So the Executive Council, it comprises of 5 members, 3 official members and 2 non-official members. It is headed by the Joint Secretary for Social Defense in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. In the ensuing sections, we shall discuss about the divisions vis-a-vis administrative planning, National Center for Drug Abuse Prevention, care for senior citizens, social defense and research and documentation. So now let us discuss administration and planning. So administration and planning division is headed by a deputy director, and this division, it caters to vis-a-vis general administration, finance and accounts. So with regard to financial aspects of National Institute of Social Defense, it is supported by Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment through grants in aids. So to illustrate, during 2017-18, the National Institute of Social Defense received a total of rupees 4.1 crore under the grant in aids, and these funds had been allocated for programs and activities concerning the communities. Now let us discuss National Center for Drug Abuse Prevention. So in 2018, the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, in collaboration with the National Drug Dependence Treatment Center (NDDTC) of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences (AIIMS), New Delhi, had conducted the first national survey on extent and pattern of substance abuse. And according to the report, the most common psychoactive substance used by Indians is alcohol, 16 crores, followed by cannabis, 3.1 crore, and opioids, 2.26 crore. The drug and substance abuse is indeed a social menace that adversely affects not only the victim's physical and mental health, but it also disturbs their families as well. So, keeping in view of the substance abuse menace, the NISD established a National Center for Drug Abuse Prevention, or NCDAP, in the year 1998. So the mandate of this center is to provide technical aid to the government in terms of, first, the framing of preventive policies, and second, for better coverage of countrywide services for substance demand reduction. Since 1998, the National Center for Drug Abuse Prevention, NCDAP, has been actively involved in augmenting its activities and in evolving strategies for handling the issues of substance abuse. In this regard, its mission is to build the capacities of the service providers at the ground level. In fact, the center collaborates with state governments, NGOs, state level coordinating agency, SLCA, Panchayati Raj institutions, and agencies as well. So one of the core concerns of this center, the National Center for Drug Abuse Prevention, is to strengthen the field level functionaries vis-a-vis project coordinators, counselors, social workers, outreach workers, community workers, school teachers, National Service Scheme NSS volunteers, Master of Social Work MSW students, nurses, and hospital ward boys. Besides this Center for National Center for Drug Abuse Prevention, it regularly organizes capacity building programs on harmful effects of drug abuse to schools, colleges, and universities. For example, in the year 2017-18, the National Center for Drug Abuse Prevention, in association with regional resource and training centers and universities, conducted 333 capacity building programs. It covered a total of 26,249 trainees. Specifically, a 3-month certificate course on drug de-addiction, counseling and rehabilitation has been instituted exclusively for the prospective trainers and functionaries who work in drug de-addiction treatment cum rehabilitation centers. The course outline includes basics of addiction, counseling treatment protocols, awareness creation and rehabilitation, and alike. Now let's talk about senior citizens. So it includes geriatric care. The unprecedented increase in the number of elderly population, it poses a big challenge, not just for the elderly people, but also for the country, as it has to cater to their various needs. Some of the challenges faced by the elderly population include losing sense of purpose in life, financial insecurity, difficulty in everyday mobility, inaccessibility to quality healthcare, etc. Secondly, to cater to the needs and requirements, countries face steep challenges to tap the resources, be it financial or human. According to the census of 2011, The total percentage of senior citizens is 8.6%, that is 10.38 crore, and the projected elderly population percentage in 2026 is likely to go up to 12.4%. This means provisioning adequate social security to the target group without compromising on the quality of services. The senior citizens division, it caters to the needs of the elderly population, such as convening 1 year postgraduate diploma in integrated geriatric care and a 3 month certificate course on geriatric caregiving. To illustrate, one of the focus areas of the 3 month certificate program is to facilitate quality services at the elderly care homes by building skills for the staff vis-a-vis resource management and networking. In the ensuing paragraphs, we shall see two case examples relating to geriatric care. So, the first case example we are going to discuss is of Miss Pooja, a 23-year-old bright young woman, is a story of inspiration. Survived by her mother and brother who work as contractual employees, Pooja's dream job was to become a nurse. Despite applying for various nursing colleges and institutes, Pooja was unable to seek admission due to financial constraints. Since her brother was the only breadwinner, she had to almost drop her passion of becoming a nurse. Pooja was looking for alternatives to achieve her passion and finally came across the 3 month certificate course on geriatric care for bedside assistants caregivers offered by the National Institute for Social Defense. As the course was free, she applied and on successful completion of the course could get a job at a reputed nursing home in Delhi. Let us see the second case example, which is of Mr. Deepak, a 24-year-old youth from a remote village in Bihar who did a 6 month computer course after completion of his grade 10. In 2013, he lost his father, who was the sole breadwinner of the family. Owing to his limited educational qualifications, Deepak could not find a good job and hence worked in a shoemaking factory. Although he disliked his work, Deepak felt contented that he could financially support his mother. However, with a willingness to improve his financial condition, Deepak was keen to look for a good opening. Through word of mouth, he came to know about the 3 month certificate course on geriatric caregiving in the year 2018. With adequate exposure to geriatric care coupled with his determination and grit to switch to a better career, Deepak got placement with a monthly income of rupees 30,000. With the savings, he could lead a dignified life and managed to own a bike. Due to the 3 month course, Deepak could enhance his scientific knowledge about geriatric care and he aspires to work for the well-being of the elderly. So from the above two examples, we must have understood how the certificate course has improved the financial security of Pooja and Deepak. Now let us discuss about the maintenance and welfare of senior citizens. So with the objective to ensure social security for the elderly, the Government of India intends to amend the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act of 2007 in the 2021-22 winter session of the Parliament. According to the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Amendment Bill of 2019, children and distant relatives of the elderly are held responsible for their maintenance and well-being. In case of abandonment or causing distress to the elderly, their relatives can be penalized and even imprisoned. To illustrate, the bill provisions that those who have abused the elderly would be imprisoned for a term of 3 to 6 months or a penalty of rupees 10,000, or the offender may have to undergo both penalty as well as imprisonment. Notably, such provision did not exist in the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act of 2007. Another provision to be included in the bill refers to the elderly welfare vis-a-vis housing, clothing, safety and amenities for physical and mental well-being. At the institutional level, The bill seeks to establish senior citizen care homes, which may be either run by the government or private. However, the bill states that such homes need to be registered with the respective state governments. The role of the central government is to evolve minimum standards for such homes like physical infrastructure, medical facilities, etc. So, the role of this division is to create legal awareness to the field level functionaries about such provisions that exist for upholding the dignity of the elderly. So, in the ensuing paragraphs, let us look into the lives of two elderly people who were left alone by their children and how institutional support could transform their lives. So, let us discuss case example 3, which is of Miss N. Rukmani, a nonagerian from Nilgiri district who was abandoned by her daughters and sons and had to rely on her neighbors for food and shelter. Gradually, her health started declining, because of which she was admitted to a government hospital. Lack of physical and moral support at the hospital made the hospital staff to network with Sri Ramakrishna Old Age Home, a home that has been supported by the National Institute for Social Defense. There was a request from the hospital to add her as their beneficiary. In 2016, when she was brought to the home, she was unable to walk on her own. However, with the support of the home staff, she was able to recover physically and mentally. To illustrate, she could walk without any support, and gradually her health improved, that she became an active member of the old age home. Now let us discuss the fourth case example, which is of Miss Chandra Rajini. Miss Chandra Rajini, a septuagenarian widow from Manipur, was ill-treated by her son and daughter-in-law. She was financially sound when her husband was alive, as they used to run a grocery shop. When her husband fell seriously ill, she did petty jobs for buying medicines. Despite having two sons, none of them offered financial or moral support. After the death of her husband, her sons disowned her. Despite being a diabetic, she was left alone in her house. Gradually, her physical health started deteriorating. Owing to her weak financial status and none to provide her support in any form, she started experiencing loneliness, which eventually led to depression. Seeing her plight, one of her relatives recommended her to take asylum at the senior citizen home run by the Integrated Rural Development and Educational Organization Wangbal. So this home is one of the stakeholders of National Institution of Social Defense in Manipur. As the days passed, she could make friends with her fellow inmates to share her personal story. With care and share, she could overcome her grief and sadness, that she started to pursue her hobbies like gardening, growing vegetables, etc. Now let us discuss about social defense. So stigma and marginalization are one of the big challenges the target audience face in their everyday lives. The target audience in this context refers to the elderly, the transgender persons, victims of drug abuse, beggary, victims of human immunodeficiency virus, acute immunodeficiency syndrome, human trafficking, prisons, probation services, etc. The above mentioned target audience, they have been stigmatized and marginalized, that it affects their psychosocial health. Hence, with the aim to rebuild their psychosocial well-being, appropriate interventions have been in place. The Social Defense Division aims to build networks with the police departments, regional institutes of correctional administration, State Institute of Rural Development, social welfare departments, and social work institutions, so as to provide training to the concerned stakeholders. For example, besides the above mentioned functionaries, this division also provides training to Panchayati Raj institutions and non-governmental organization functionaries, social workers, prison officials, school teachers, and counselors. The whole purpose of this division is to enable the target audience to lead a dignified life. In 2017-18, this division conducted 131 training and sensitization programs at national, state, and regional levels, thus covering 9,339 trainees. To illustrate, a 3-day state-level training program on specialized care for children affected by drug abuse was conducted in 2017-18 for 242 trainees. The beneficiaries included the concerned government and NGO functionaries, school teachers and counselors. Besides, this division also conducts skill development training program to transgender persons and beggars so that they would acquire skills to lead a decent standard of living. Now let us discuss case example 5. So during the lockdown, many of the underserved communities, including the transgender persons, they lost their livelihood and did not have any visible means of support. To overcome this, the National Institute for Social Defense, in association with the National Backward Classes Finance and Development Corporation, intended to provide COVID-19 relief fund for the underserved communities. Accordingly, COVID-19 relief fund would be directly credited into the accounts of the eligible transgender persons. One of the beneficiaries, Ms. Mukti from Madhya Pradesh, struggled to eke out a living due to the lockdown and was unable to pay her house rent. Due to her economic setback, her landlord demanded to either pay the rent or vacate the house. During the struggle, she came across a transgender activist, Ms. Reshma Prasad, who briefed her about the relief fund. Through the timely release of funds, Ms. Mukti was able to settle her rental dues. Now let us discuss about research and documentation. So the research and documentation division is responsible for evolving information, education and communication materials in all the concerned areas of NISD, such as drug alcohol abuse, intergenerational bonding, elderly care, etc. One of the significant public events that the National Institute for Social Defense had participated was the Shilpotsav at Delhi Haat, New Delhi, wherein communities awareness programs were conducted about the harmful effects of alcohol and substance abuse. Community awareness programs include informative and interactive stalls for public view, on the spot counseling, film shows, etc. Social defense has been in vogue ever since the evolution of modern governments. The role of the modern governments is to ensure welfare of its entire people, irrespective of gender, age, economic, and social status. However, the challenges are manifold due to resource constraints as well as underutilization of resources. In order to overcome these challenges, developing countries have evolved institutions that cater to the needs of the stigmatized and marginalized population. India too has resolved to provide adequate provisions for the needy, and in this regard, the National Institute of Social Defense was instituted under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. The ultimate purpose of the National Institute of Social Defense is to promote the psychosocial well-being of the underserved communities through its various administrative divisions like the National Center for Drug Abuse Prevention, Senior Citizens Division, etc. The NISD is able to create an impact in people's lives, especially the underserved communities. While the services at an individual level range from providing relief funds to skill development, at an institutional level, the services include identifying the functionaries and building their capacities. So we have done the 10th unit, which was National Institute for Social Defense. Now let us move on to the 11th unit, which is pertaining to the role of the Central Social Welfare Board. So the concept of social welfare is an intended outcome of modern governments. In a wider sense, social welfare connotes the well-being of the community, especially the vulnerable and underserved communities. Since they do not have access to quality services such as shelter, healthcare, education, etc., it is the duty of the state to ensure equitable distribution of resources to the underserved. On account of limited resources, be it human or financial or infrastructure, the state finds it challenging to directly provide services to the communities. Hence, it seeks to evolve voluntary agencies for an organized action to handle the needs and challenges faced by women and children. In fact, women and children should not be neglected as they constitute a vital element of the nation's progress. So the Central Social Welfare Board, it acts as a facilitator in providing financial assistance to voluntary agencies at the ground level, thus evolving its role from a service provider to a facilitator. Now let us discuss about the evolution and the structure of the Central Social Welfare Board. So the Central Social Welfare Board, CSWB, was instituted in the year 1953 by a resolution of the Government of India. It is a fully funded autonomous organization that comes under the aegis of the Ministry of Women and Child Development. The mandate of the Central Social Welfare Board is to promote social welfare activities and implement welfare programs for the target audience vis-a-vis women, children, and physically challenged. While executing the responsibility, the Central Social Welfare Board intends to bridge the existing gap between the government and voluntary sector and to strengthen connection with the people. Keeping in view of the significance of social welfare schemes, in 1954, the State Social Welfare Boards, SSWB, were established in all states and union territories. The main objectives of the State Social Welfare Board is to first coordinate welfare and development activities of the state departments and promote voluntary social welfare agencies, especially in the remote areas. The Central Social Welfare Board gained its legal status in 1969 and registered under Section 25 of the Indian Companies Act of 1956. During 1950s, under the guidance of Dr. Durgabai Deshmukh, the founder chairperson of Central Social Welfare Board, various welfare schemes were launched. When Dr. Deshmukh was in charge of social services in the Planning Commission, she played a pivotal role in planning the social welfare programs for the first 5-year plan, 1951 to 1956. To illustrate, the first 5-year plan emphasized that the needs and challenges of women and children must be prioritized, not that they are in a state of vulnerability, but they form the most vital elements of the community. In line with this agenda, the Central Social Welfare Board, it executes various schemes that provide support to the needy, destitute and disadvantaged women and children in the country. In order to provide seamless services at the field level, several voluntary agencies team up with the state social welfare boards. Indeed, based on the recommendations of the state social welfare boards, the Central Social Welfare Board provides financial support to those voluntary organizations that are committed to advance social justice. The state social welfare boards, they play a vital role in disseminating information and creating awareness on issues that affect women and children through posters and public campaigns. Central Social Welfare Board has implemented several development projects and schemes such as grants in AIDS, welfare extension projects, Mahila Mandals, socio-economic program, dairy scheme, condensed course of education program for adolescent girls and women, vocational training program, awareness generation program, national creche scheme, short stay home program, integrated scheme for women's empowerment for northeastern states, innovative projects and family counseling center program. So these are some of the programs that have been implemented by the Central Social Welfare Board. One of its flagship program is the Family Counseling Center. It offers counseling services to the aggrieved women in case of marital discord, dowry, family maladjustment, domestic violence, molestation, cybercrime, etc. The services at the Family Counseling Center is being delivered across the country through voluntary agencies. For administrative efficiency, the Central Social Welfare Board has established the Monitoring, Assessment and Capacity Building Division, MAC. The chief aims of the division is to monitor the functioning of all the 33 state social welfare boards organize capacity building training for the functionaries as well as for women and children. Two-state training programs were held for the field officers to groom their skills on monitoring the scheme. To coordinate the various development projects and schemes, Central Social Welfare Board has established the Coordination Division. The role of this division is to act as a channel of communication between Central Social Welfare Board and Ministry of Women and Child Development, Niti Aayog and other ministries. Over the decades, Central Social Welfare Board has confronted inequality and unfairness by coordinating various development projects. Significantly, social justice, when delivered at the right time, it enables the vulnerable to feel safe and secure. In the beginning, Central Social Welfare Board, the focus of the Central Social Welfare Board was only towards welfare. Gradually, it set foot in the development of women and children. Currently, the shift has been towards empowerment. When it comes to empowerment, it means promoting inclusiveness, gaining recognition, access to quality services and opportunities, and above all, overcoming uncertainties. Now let us discuss the general body and the executive committee of the Central Social Welfare Board. So for conducting the business of Central Social Welfare Board, the general body and the executive committee have been constituted. The general body is headed by the chairperson of the Central Social Welfare Board. It also comprises of all chairpersons of the respective state social welfare boards, 6 professionals vis-a-vis law, medicine, nutrition, social work, education and social development, 3 eminent social workers, representatives from Ministry of Women and Child Development, Rural Development, Health and Family Welfare, Finance as well as Niti Aayog, etc. It also includes 2 members from Lok Sabha, 1 member from Rajya Sabha, and the executive director of the Central Social Welfare Board. So the chairperson of the Central Social Welfare Board also heads the executive committee. Besides, other members include representatives from the 5 state social welfare boards, including 1 from the Union Territory, 1 representative from Ministry of Women and Child Development, Department of Rural Development, Department of Finance, Department of Health and Family Welfare, Department of Education, each, and 2 professionals from the general body. So the administration of the Central Social Welfare Board has been entrusted to the executive committee. The central government from time to time may appoint a chairperson to head the Central Social Welfare Board. In this regard, an eminent social worker with the administrative and organizational abilities may be considered fit for the position. The government can consult the chairperson to nominate the executive director and internal financial advisor cum chief accounts officer. On the other hand, chairperson may also be consulted to replace them with other personnel. The functions of the Central Social Welfare Board include: the first function is to survey the needs and requirements of social welfare organizations. The second function is to establish social welfare institutions in remote areas. The third function is to provide grants in aid to those voluntary institutions and non-governmental organizations that offer welfare services to the vulnerable population. And the fourth function is to coordinate with government departments and voluntary organizations with regard to development programs and schemes. Now let us discuss about the state social welfare boards. So the state social welfare board, it comprises of 50% of Central Social Welfare Board members and 50% of state social welfare board members and government officials. It is headed by a chairperson and a secretary. Besides, they also consist of field officers. and staff. The board shall be constituted every 3 years according to the rules governing composition and functions of the State Social Welfare Board. An eminent social worker will be the chairperson at the state level. Apart from being an eminent social worker, the condition for becoming the chairperson include that they should neither be an elected representative nor a person who holds office of profit. So Central Social Welfare Board, in consultation with the state government, selects the chairpersons of State Social Welfare Board. The chairperson of State Social Welfare Board would be appointed by the respective state governments with the approval of the Central Social Welfare Board. As of 2020, there are 33 chairpersons of State Social Welfare Boards. The State Social Welfare Boards may consist of members as decided by the Central Social Welfare Board. According to the rules governing composition and functions of the State Social Welfare Boards, the chairperson must be a female social worker, and regarding the composition, there shall be one social worker as member to represent each major district of the respective states. Additionally, a representative from the university, Department of Social Work, officials who represent departments like health, education, social welfare, women's welfare, community development, etc. There shall also be one woman representative from the respective state legislatures who shall be nominated by the respective state governments. With reference to the upper limit of the non-official members, it shall be fixed by the Central Social Welfare Board. So regarding the duration of the membership, the chairperson of the State Social Welfare Board shall hold office for 3 years with a maximum duration of 2 consecutive terms. Likewise, the board members cannot hold office for more than 2 consecutive terms. The board shall meet for at least 4 times a year. All the meetings shall be convened and presided by the chairperson. So in case of absence of the chairperson, any member can be elected from amongst the members. The State Social Welfare Board, it can be dissolved, or the chairperson or any member of the board can be removed from office only with the mutual consent of the Central Social Welfare Board and the respective state governments. So the term of office of either the chairperson or any of the members shall be terminated only for the following reasons. The first reason is if that person is of unsound mind. The second is if that person is convicted or sentenced to imprisonment. The third reason is if that person is declared insolvent. The fourth reason is if the person who refuses or is incapable to discharge the duties. And the fifth reason is absence of attendance in 3 consecutive meetings of the board. Some of the functions of the State Social Welfare Board include: the first function is to act as a medium of information exchange between the field and Central Social Welfare Boards and vice versa. The second function is to invite, accept, scrutinize and recommend to the Central Social Welfare Board the applications received for grants in aids from voluntary organizations and other institutions. The third function is to supervise and report about the working of the voluntary organizations, institutions and projects to the Central Social Welfare Board or other government departments. The fourth function is to provide advice and assistance to Central Social Welfare Board in sponsoring new welfare programs and activities based on the needs of the state. The fifth function is to coordinate the welfare and development activities undertaken by state departments. The sixth function is to promote the advancement of voluntary agencies in the areas uncovered so far. The seventh function is to assist the Central Social Welfare Board in offering field counseling services for aided agencies. So in the ensuing sections, we shall discuss the pioneering schemes of the Central Social Welfare Board vis-a-vis family counseling centers, national creche scheme, and short stay home. So the fourth function of the state social and central of the state social welfare board was to provide assistance and advice to the central social welfare board in sponsoring new welfare programs and activities based on the needs of the state. Another very important function of the state social welfare board is to coordinate the welfare and developmental activities that are being undertaken by state departments and to promote the advancement of voluntary agencies in the areas that have been left uncovered so far, and also to assist the Central Social Welfare Board in offering field counseling services for aided agencies. Some of the other functions are to act as a medium of information exchange between the field and the Central Social Welfare Board and vice versa. And also, another function of the State Social Welfare Board is to invite, accept, scrutinize, and recommend to the Central Social Welfare Board the applications received for grant in aids from voluntary organizations and other institutions. Another function is to supervise and report about the working of the voluntary organizations, institutions, and projects to the Central Social Welfare Boards or other government departments. So now, let us discuss the pioneering schemes of the Central Social Welfare Board vis-a-vis family counseling centers, national creche scheme, and short stay home. So the first thing that we are going to discuss is family counseling centers. So the Central Social Welfare Board launched the Family Counseling Center in the year 1983. So the Family Counseling Center is a pioneering scheme of the Central Social Welfare Board implemented through various voluntary organizations. The role of the Family Counseling Center is to counsel, recommend, and rehabilitate services to the target audience. The target audience include women and children who have been victims of abuse, atrocities, family maladjustments, and social ostracism. In case of natural disasters, it also offers interventions and trauma counseling. Besides, it generates awareness and mobilizes public opinion and support on social issues that affect the dignity of women. So, in case of natural disasters, the Family Counseling Center offers interventions and trauma counseling, and also it generates awareness and it mobilizes public opinion and support on social issues that affect the dignity of women. Since the Family Counseling Center works at the field level with the distressed women and children, they collaborate with the local administration, police, courts, free legal aid centers, medical and psychiatric institutions, vocational training centers, etc. Some of the objectives of the Family Counseling Center the first objective is to provide crisis intervention services like to make an independent inquiry in dowry death cases and also to make efforts for reconciliation in separation marital cases and out of court settlement in marital cases. The third function is to offer referral services like Swadhar Griha, free legal aids, police assistance, etc., and also to provide appropriate rehabilitation services for distressed women, children, and their dependents. What are the eligibility conditions for availing assistance from the Family Counseling Center? The eligibility conditions for availing financial assistance under Family Counseling Center include: the first is that the organization should be registered under an appropriate act, and all voluntary organizations should be registered at Niti Aayog portal along with the permanent account number or PAN of the non-governmental organization and the office bearers of the non-governmental organization. The third condition is that it must have been involved in social welfare work for at least 3 years before applying for seeking grants, and also the roles and responsibilities of personnel facilities, resources, managerial skill, and expertise experience to fulfill the objectives of the family counseling center. The organization's financial position should be sound and able to seek additional funds. The family counseling center scheme would be open to all Indian citizens irrespective of religion, caste, race, creed, or language. Now let us discuss the organizational setup. So each family counseling center is mandated to form a subcommittee of social workers, representative from the local administration, police, state free legal aid cells, and other voluntary organizations which provides Farhar Griha facilities. Also, any organization that is involved in the rehabilitation of deserted women. The subcommittee may evolve a plan of action to achieve the objectives of family counseling center. For effective performance of family counseling center, the subcommittee needs to meet at least once in 3 months. Besides the family counseling center, it needs to be located in an area that is easily accessible for the victims. It should have a pleasant ambience and a separate room with basic amenities for counseling services. The location of the family counseling center will not be changed without seeking approval from Central Social Welfare Board. It is to be noted that the family counseling center's address and counseling services should be intimated to the district collector and district police commissioner so that there is active collaboration among them. 90% of expenditure would be incurred by the Central Social Welfare Board and 10% by the concerned voluntary organization. To illustrate, out of a total annual budget of rupees 3 crore 20 lakh, rupees 2 crore 88 lakh, out of a so to illustrate, out of a total budget of rupees 3 lakh 20,000, rupees 2 lakh 88,000 will be contributed by Central Social Welfare Board, that is 90%, and rupees 32,000 by the voluntary organization, that is 10%, that implements the family counseling center, since the primary responsibility of the family counseling center is to provide counseling services. 2 counselors are allowed per family counseling center to offer services. An honorarium of rupees 10,000 per month would be paid to each counselor. Some of the training programs conducted for the betterment of family counseling centers in the past 5 years were: the first was a 2-day orientation training program for the counselors of family counseling centers, was conducted by the Madhya Pradesh State Social Welfare Board in Bhopal. The National Institute of Public Cooperation and Child Development, Bengaluru, had conducted training program for the family counseling center counselors registered with Andhra Pradesh Social Welfare Board. The Karnataka State Social Welfare Board, in collaboration with National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, NIMHANS, organized a refresher training program for the family counseling center counselors. Let us discuss the first case example. So Avinash, an introvert and hard-working student, was pursuing grade 8 in Sembukudipatti, Tamil Nadu. One day he had gone missing and his parents received information that he was kidnapped on October 13, 2016. The community members guided them to approach Family Counseling Center for Rural Education and Development, CRED. The traumatized parents approached the counselor present at the Family Counseling Center and shared information about Avinash. As the objective of Family Counseling Center is to provide legal and psychological counseling, the parents were provided with emotion-focused therapy. Based on the details furnished by his parents, Mr. Alagason, Secretary of the Center for Rural Education and Development, CRED, filed for a first information report or FIR on October 14, 2016. Despite the efforts of police, Avinash was not to be found anywhere. Further, Mr. Alagason reported the case to the Child Line 1098 with the help of the Child Line team, a helpline that works for the aggrieved children, and the Center for Rural Education and Development, it was found that Avinash was kidnapped by a man named Marudhu. Eyewitness and other sources revealed that Avinash was found with a stranger near the bus stand, and the motive was to involve him as a child laborer. So, the Center for Rural Education and Development promptly communicated the matter to the kidnapper's parents and asked them to locate his place. Eventually, Avinash was safely rescued from the kidnapper and reunited with his parents. Now let us discuss the National Creche Scheme. So one of the flagship schemes of the Central Social Welfare Board is the National Creche Scheme, which is implemented through state social welfare boards and non-governmental organizations. So creche and daycare services are needed not only for working mothers, but also for poor women who do not have access to adequate childcare support and relief. So, the creche division of Central Social Welfare Board under Ministry of Women and Child Development deals with this scheme. It is operational in all states and union territories. The objective of the scheme is to provide daycare facilities for children from 6 months to 6 years, to enhance nutrition and health status of children through supplementary nutrition and adequate healthcare facilities, also to provide preschool education for the children. So another objective of the National Creche Scheme is to ensure holistic development of the child, physical, cognitive, social and preschool education, and to provide age appropriate activities to the children and educate and empower women and caregivers so that they would provide better child care. So as of 2016-17, each creche center would be provided up to rupees 1,26,440 per annum. Need-based application for new creches will be widely publicized in local newspapers as well as in Central Social Welfare Board web portal. To avoid wastage of resources, the non-governmental organizations as well as field officers of Central State Social Welfare Board are expected to conduct baseline survey to examine whether there is any requirement of creches. For example, data with regard to working mothers at village level is needed. Also, uncovered areas would be given preference. In order to review the situation at the ground level and to ensure the requirement of a creche, district administration is engaged to ensure once the voluntary agency has applied, the State Social Welfare Board would scrutinize the same based on the agency's credentials, and services offered are the daycare facilities are available for 8 hours in a day or as provided in the scheme. Besides preschool education, it also offers supplementary nutrition, routine health checkups and immunization for the child, growth monitoring and health and nutrition aspects, etc. So regarding monitoring, to monitor the functioning of creches, the Central Social Welfare Board has 15 project officers, 49 assistant project officers and 55 welfare officers. A total of 119 field officers have been posted across different states. The officers need to be a postgraduate in social sciences, and Central Social Welfare Board allots zones and districts for monitoring. These officers are expected to submit periodical reports to Central Social Welfare Board and State Social Welfare Boards. In the year 2016-17, there were a total of 11,451 sanctioned creches with 2,92,990 children. And presently, the National Creche Scheme has been passed on to the state governments. Now let us discuss the first case example, which is training programs for creche workers. Select examples. A 2-day training program for creche workers was organized by the Meghalaya State Social Welfare Board in 2016. The training content included the skills needed to deal with infant care, age-appropriate nutritional requirements of the children and preschool education. So the Karnataka Social Welfare Board had organized a 2-day creche workers training in 2017, and the training content included the concepts like communicable diseases that affect children between 0 to 6 years, hygiene and cleanliness of the centers, maternal and child care, psychosocial care and catering to the needs of children. And also a 2-day creche workers training was organized by the West Bengal State Social Welfare Board in 2016, and the trainers, they demonstrated about the healthy cooking skills and habits, as well as ways for preserving the nutritional values of food. So we have discussed the Family Counseling Center and the National Crash Scheme. Another scheme by the Central Social Welfare Board is the Short Stay Home, which was launched by the Department of Women and Child Development in 1969, and it was subsequently handed over to the Central Social Welfare Board in the year 2000. And the objective of this scheme is to offer temporary shelter and rehabilitative services to homeless women and girls. And this scheme has been implemented only through registered voluntary organizations who are experienced in dealing with issues related to aggrieved women and girls. So thank you so much. Namaste.